Asian Americans are the fastest growing ethnic group in Connecticut, with 100 to 150,000 residents, or about 5% of the state's population. The community lives mostly in urban areas, and there's a growing number of Chinese-born workers at the Indian casinos in southeastern Connecticut. Until now, no Asian Americans have held state political office.
My father came looking for work to Hartford, to Blue Hills Avenue, the Hong Kong Kitchen.
Meet William Tong, who defeated a Republican incumbent and will serve as a state rep from Stamford. Tong's parents came from China and started their own restaurant.
And irrespective of child labor laws, I was there on the weekends working 15-hour days with my parents because that's what had to be done, washing dishes, taking out garbage. To this day, a minor boast that I make is that I can cook almost every dish on a basic Chinese takeout menu.
Like many Chinese Americans, William Tong is a second-generation success story. Through his parents' hard work, Tong went to a private boarding school, then to an Ivy League university, and eventually earning a law degree from the University of Chicago. He's now a corporate lawyer in Stamford, but Tong says some in his community are not doing so well and need more help from state agencies.
Mental health is a big issue, particularly in the Asian American community, because the community doesn't do a very good job of dealing with it in terms of providing sources for therapy and for helping people who are suffering from mental illness. So my concern is that there is an infrastructure and that there are accessible outlets for Asian Americans to seek help with mental illness, or a whole host of other services like credit counseling or help starting a business, help learning English.
In terms of legislation, Tong and other politically active members of his community plan to push lawmakers to enact an Asian American Affairs Commission. The legislature has already established commissions for women's issues as well as the African American and Latino communities. But within the many different Asian American subgroups, each has its own distinct needs. Some fled wars.
I came from Cambodia. I was a refugee from Cambodia in 1975. I was the first Cambodian family in the state of Connecticut.
Vichika Shelto is a social worker and the founder of Asian Family Services in Hartford, the only organization in the state providing family therapy, mental health, medical, and addiction services specifically geared to the needs of Asian clients. Shelto says a common and pervasive problem is post-traumatic stress from the Vietnam War and the Cambodian genocide.
It's a chronic traumatic life experience for the Southeast Asian population. Many refugees have an experience of separation, lost their loved one, witnessed the genocide, or witnessed the killing, the raping, sometimes experience themselves with all kinds of trauma. And then compounding with the acculturation process, there is no adequate support system to try to help them out. Therefore, they remain vulnerable and isolated.
Many who don't seek or get treatment for PTSD end up self-medicating through drugs or alcohol, says Shelto. But significant cultural stigmas stand in the way of seeking treatment.
For the Asian community, mental health and all the people working it, mental illness is much like witchcraft. It's scary.
Bill Howe is Chinese American. He's also a consultant for the Connecticut Department of Education.
For a child to seek special educational services, some families see that as mental illness. And part of my job is to explain to people that being a special ed student is not a mental illness. Special ed children just have different needs, and they need to be met. There's nothing wrong with a person. We need to be able to provide those kinds of culturally competent services.
Howe says state and local governments sometimes harbor positive stereotypes about Asian Americans as the model minority, well-educated, not poor, and blessed with strong and stable families. This often gets in the way of providing services. Ultimately, says Vichika Shelto of Asian Family Services, if the state invests more to help Asian immigrants, taxpayers will benefit.
If you bring one big group of immigrant and you just left them there, that group become isolated, and it can cause unhappiness, and the unhappiness later on can cause a lot of conflict in the society, crime, drug, violence, or whatever. Like it or not, when we came to this country, we are part of the society member, and it's very important for the society as a whole to try to help the society member to become healthy.
With the election of William Tong to the State Assembly, the effort to provide greater human services to Asian Americans in Connecticut will now at least have some political representation. For WNPR, I'm Av Harris.